Wrestling fans, special treat. Finally get him on the show. It is more my fault than his. I will take that one. I will
No,
take that fault
stop it,
any day.
stop it, stop it, stop it. You are not allowed to take fault when it's been me who's had to cancel every time. I like how you're
N-
trying to cover for the
It was me a
boys,
couple
but
times.
that's been my fault. It was
It
one
was me a
time you
couple
to the
times.
five times me.
Fair enough. I'll
Okay.
give you that one.
I'll
But
never lie to the people.
I try not to. I try not to. It's not in my nature and against my religion to lie. So I
No,
try
but
not to.
you're trying to protect the boys, so I respect you for that.
I am definitely trying to do that. But wrestling fans, this is a very special edition of Strong Style. I'm Jeremy the Impact York. I am joined by Matchmaker of Deep South Wrestling, and more importantly, my good friend Eric Adams with a Z. How are you, Eric?
Not bad today. Thank you very much for finally having me. Crazy weekend that we had on the Beltline with Deep South Wrestling.
Yeah.
Great show. A lot of interesting events took place. Very proud of my team. Everybody did great. It was great seeing you there. You know, I know you went out and caught that great Mucha Lucha show the next day at Norcross. I don't know how the hell you do it, going back to back to two big shows like that.
I don't do it often. That's how.
I feel you.
Getting a little too old to go back to back a lot of weekends.
Yeah, but you see, Ricardo had a show you just couldn't miss either. But Ricardo had such great talent. For God's sakes, he had Negro Casas in the house, and I really wanted to go see him. I was done for, and I just like,
Oh yeah, we met Ricardo as well, and we're gonna try to line him up here soon because he's fantastic. We met all kinds of
such a great
people
guy,
there.
such a
He
great
really
guy. That
is.
guy deserves all the success he gets.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody thinks he's just the figurehead or the money guy, and I was like, he does everything. Just like you with Deep South, Ricardo does everything for Mucha Lucha.
Yes, us Latinos, we work hard.
That's definitely true. But let's go to that Saturday show because uh, every time that I think you can't outdo the show before this, you figure out a way to do it. It has a lot to do with the talent and the way you put it together, but No Escape by far was just an incredible show. Just
Thank you.
off the top, did you have a moment, a big moment, something that really stuck out to you?
I mean, the whole thing stuck out to me. I'm back there in the Jody position, watching everything as it's happening, and I mean, that it's like it's like picking your favorite child. You know, you just can't do it. I mean, so many moments. The debut of Mark Davidson, you know, I thought
Yeah.
that was fantastic. Cedric, CT Entertainment stepping up to the plate and going toe to toe with Naja, proving that he's not just a gimmick guy or this young rookie no more. Two out of three falls, DJ Smoke and Apollo. Are you kidding me? The drama, the story that was told, the
Oh
physical
yeah.
toll taken by both guys in that one. The story and the big fight feel between two big girls with Gemma and Rose Gold, two of the tallest women in wrestling today.
Yep.
That was fantastic to see. Geez, I mean, I can keep going. Of course, the main event. I mean, that's 2 years in the making, and you know, 2 years in the making for Jacob, and I was proud he was able to get seize that moment. And you know, I think what a lot of people don't understand is I actually have a lot of respect for Skrilla now. You know, we got in the ring and we worked together, and I found out what he was about, and
Hmm.
you know, I got to remind people on the very first show we ran, Resurgence, when we first came back, Skrilla was a replacement. That's the thing nobody
Wow.
understands. Skrilla was a 72-hour replacement for another wrestler. And what a fucking run. What a run. I mean, just to be honest with you, what a run he's had with Deep South. I mean, I'm going to
Oh yeah.
say something and it's going to sound controversial. And this is no disrespect to Rocky King. This is no disrespect to Randy Rose. This is no disrespect to The Miz. No disrespect to any of those guys. Legitimately the greatest champion in the history of Deep South Wrestling was Skrilla this time. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the matchmaker. I'm saying if you go back and look at the history of Deep South and you look at the stories and you look at the build and you look at somebody who really helped elevate a title. Skrilla did more than anybody in the 86 to 88 era, the 2006 to 2008 era. So now the third incarnation, he's done more for that belt than any other wrestler that has had it. And he did it because of his passion for this business and how much he loves this business and how much he loves being a part of this business. Because everybody forgets this is Skrilla's. This was the second career he chased. He was originally in the music business.
Mm-hmm.
So to go from being a musician to becoming a professional wrestler and to be that dedicated and that motivated, the main events, I can look back and look at them. The 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 I Quit match with Naja when we did our first ever sellout at Seven Stages Theater. That match was amazing. His matches, the championship tournament, the Grand Prix, Bischoff even saying, "That's your guy. That is your guy." Road Dogg coming by when we had the coldest show in wrestling history. Road Dogg Brian James stopped by,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "There's a reason you're called Skrilla the Great, not Skrilla the Good. Keep doing what you're doing, kid." His 2 out of 3 falls with Chad Skywalker. He's had his match with James Storm back over in West Georgia when we did it over at the GPAC. Skrilla was on a different level than anybody else. And, I love Jacob, but I told Jacob, I said, "Hey, you got some shoes to fill, brother. You got some shoes to fill." And, Jacob's life story, my God, I can't wait for you guys to hear his life story now that we get to put that out, because easily one of the most inspirational wrestlers in Deep South Wrestling is Jacob Johnson. If you know his backstory, his back life story. This is a guy who came from living in a house in Paterson, New Jersey. Not a fancy house, not anything like that. Raised by 2 hardworking parents who loved him very much. Came down to Georgia to chase a dream and to be closer to his daughter, to literally at some points living in his car. And he's not a little guy living in
No.
an economy car
Mm-hmm.
just to make his way in life, riding his bicycle. Um, what's normally a 45-minute drive without traffic just to get to wrestling training, riding a bicycle just to get it done, putting on, the muscle he's did and everything he's done. I mean, everything. It's just, I feel really lucky to be working with the amount of talent that I have on my roster, because I have a firm belief, and I will always stick by this. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what you identify with. I don't care what your skin color is. If you're special, you're special. And I got a whole roster of very special guys, and men and women and
Yep.
people that I really I'm very lucky. And, like I said, Jacob's got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah. And let's start right there. We may go reverse on the card. Um, to see Jacob get that moment, that was something else. I've never seen somebody smile and be that happy for probably about 2 hours from the time he won and he realized he won all the way up until at least when we left, which was about 2 hours after that. But you
Well, it's
got to
been a two
say,
year journey.
yeah,
It's been a 2 year journey for him.
but you got to say, first off, like you said, hats off, kudos, pat on the back, whatever you want to say to Skrilla. Jacob doesn't get there without Skrilla, being that
Yeah.
guy. Without that, it would have just been a good main event. But that 2 year journey and all that, so
Yeah.
hats off, flowers, whatever you want to say to Skrilla. Like you
Yeah.
said, it would be real hard to argue he's not the best Deep South heavyweight champ, because what he did, he made that title probably one of the most prominent titles in the South, let alone the state.
If you ask me, I would say the most prominent. We haven't had big names on our cards for our guys to wrestle. We haven't, it's I need to be very careful with my words here because I don't want to discredit anyone. Um,
Right.
We don't get to 767 fans if not for the hard work of Skrilla, Jacob, Luca, Cosmo, Chad, Gemma, Naja. I mean, the list goes on and on of
Mhm.
talent on our roster.
Absolutely.
We don't, we don't get there without all their hard work. And Skrilla was he was the anchor, and he's gonna be missed.
Yep. For people who hadn't read the write up, I know we just turned it in earlier today, but Skrill is going to take a little bit of a break. He says he'll be back. We'll see how long of a break. Hopefully not too long because there's so many big things we're going to talk about here in a minute coming up for Deep
Well, I
South
mean,
that I hope he doesn't
I'll
miss
tell you
something.
the I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth. Skrilla's agreement to work with us was up about 4 months ago,
Mm,
but he never lost the title, and he's a man of his word, and he continued to do that, and we haven't come to a new agreement yet. So the future of Skrilla in Deep South at best is up in the air. And it's fine because I think it's time for Skrilla to get out and be seen other places. And when I mean other places, I don't mean just in Georgia, because I mean, what more can he do in Georgia? He was the 2023 all around wrestler of the year. The feud of the year, as awarded by those awards too, was Skrilla versus the state of Georgia in wrestling.
yeah.
I think reality wrestling had to change their entire television schedule that they air on YouTube to air the match Skrilla had for them down there. Maybe it's time for Skrilla to start showing up in Houston a little more. Maybe it's time for Skrilla to be seen in the Carolinas a little bit more. Maybe it's time for Skrilla to be seen in other places, in other markets. And I think it's time
Mhm.
for Skrilla to be able to get out there and be seen by these other people. And God willing, let's see maybe if he could end up, either in Jacksonville, Florida or Orlando, Florida.
Yeah. I don't see why he couldn't. But got to get back to Jacob. Was his big moment. And I like the fact that we saw one of the best cage matches you could have possibly seen, and it wasn't something out of the mind of M. Night Shyamalan. There wasn't buckets of blood everywhere. In fact, I think only the two of them barely got scraped up. They had just one of the best matches you possibly can. Still use the cage, and it wasn't a bloodbath. That is testament to them. That's testament to just everybody involved.
I have seen a wrestling cage match only one other time in my life be done successfully that well. And that was SummerSlam Bret Hart versus Owen Hart.
Yep.
And well, I mean, you also have to remember they had to be careful with the cage because there was barbed wire surrounding the entire roof of the cage.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacob has a pretty good little deep gash on the side of his hand, of his right hand. Last we checked, he got that taken care of. He was able to get it's like this medical grade super glue to close that wound. And Skrilla had a couple of bad scrapes on his forearms and
Yeah.
stuff that had to be treated. But other than that, that barbed wire was meant to keep him in there, and that's what they did. And they had it out, and they
Yep.
had a hell of a wrestling match.
And everybody stayed out, which was exactly the point of the whole thing. Nobody could get in, nobody could get out. You finally got two guys go toe to toe, and on this day, Jacob was the man.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I do want to. You mentioned some other stuff. I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit. I said something to CT Entertainment before the card. I saw him. He looked like he was in deep thought, which for a lot of
Well,
people, he's kind of like me.
if you
He likes to
noticed,
kind of
he didn't even have
go
his
ahead.
suit on.
No, he did.
He was ready for this. This is something he was been building to, wanting to get to for a very long time to prove this. And I think he hit it out the park.
Oh, absolutely. Before the show, like I said, I saw him. He was kind of in thought, didn't have a suit on, thought that was kind of interesting. And I said to him, I said, this was before I knew about Luca, who unfortunately got injured and missed this card. We hope he gets better soon. We know he's headed to Houston soon as well, but he's a super talent. But I said, hey, with Luca, going out of town soon, and depending on what happens in the main event, I said there's a big heel roll on this card. And I think you got a shot to take over one of those roles that if you keep digging, keep pushing, there's a real good shot you could do that. And he kind of blinked a few times and looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I think you're right. That's what I'm going to do." And him and Naja, because Naja is very hard to keep up with. Spiral did a good
Extremely.
job of it, but not many people can keep up with the speed and athleticism of Najasism, who is, I mean, his kicks and everything, he is all over the place, just spectacular. And CT was right on him.
You had Picasso and you had Rembrandt in the same ring. I mean, in the same building, in the same
Yep.
room. You had two easels, you had two boards, and man, were they painting. They were painting, brother.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, they were, And Naja, not for nothing. He's, now that Jacob, Naja's been kind of caught in a dichotomy because remember, he hasn't been allowed to challenge for the heavyweight title as long as Skrilla was champion.
Correct.
And, now Naja's, we got to see what's going to happen with Naja these days because now Naja, he's back in that hunt. He's back in that hunt. But of course, he's not the number one contender.
Nope.
That was
Not
another
yet. Now, of
match.
course, I was about to say that transitions right into the 2 out of 3 falls match: Apollo Prince versus DJ Smoke. These guys have faced 6 other times. It was 3-3. So you and Nick did the smart thing. You said, you know what, 2 out of 3 falls, and I'll even put this crown on top of it. You're the number one contender if you win this. And I felt like
I
those
had to.
two,
I had
that's the
to.
best match I've seen those two ever have.
I had to. These guys have, in every scenario they've been put in the ring against each other in, have proven who they are. Because you see, there's an interesting, it's an interesting crossing of paths. You have someone the likes of Apollo Prince, who's been around since the old WWA for Curtis Hughes days,
Hmm.
that has never really got his due. I don't
No.
feel in the wrestling business, and then you have the young DJ Smoke, original Jonathan Gresham student that now works hand in hand with Naja all the time, and Smoke's really impressed me since his debut.
Hmm.
And these guys just, I was watching them and I was put in the mind of Tajiri and Super Crazy. And I
Yep.
said, you know what? Let's just keep it going. And, it went from a couple tag matches to then these singles matches. And, like I said, these guys went out there and they put it all on the line. They put it all on the line. I mean, that's the part of the wrestling business that pisses me off sometimes about talking to people. This is why I like talking to you, and this is no shade or disrespect to other people who review shows. A lot of people don't understand that the wrestling game is still a fighting game.
Hmm.
And you don't, I did this. I started when I was 14 years old, and I'm, now. And when you go in, you don't always come out whole. You don't. And you come out and you're changed and you're physically changed for life sometimes. And there's things you can no longer do. Um, and to watch guys like that sacrifice at such a high level, I I had to do that. I had to put that number one contendership on the line because, I'm a firm believer, top to bottom, everything matters on the card. And when Smoke's been put in that position of match one on the card, that kid's delivered every time. And him and Apollo were doing that. And they were delivering no matter where in the card they were located. And that 2 out of 3 falls match, they had everyone enthralled. I did not think after that throwing power bomb into the post that
Yeah.
got Apollo the second fall, I did not think Smoke was going to make it in for the third fall. The
I really
fact
didn't.
that the fact that Apollo, won was phenomenal, and good for him. He won clean, fair and square.
Yep.
But kudos to Smoke for showing that he has that indomitable spirit to come back and keep fighting and keep swinging. Unfortunately, the body gave out before the heart did.
Yeah. And I would even venture to guess that if these two lined it up and did 2 out of 3 falls a month from now, that Smoke might get that one. Who knows?
It's one of those where on any given night anyone could win.
Yeah.
and I don't think we've seen the end of these two. I think
Yeah.
maybe for a little while, I'm going to stay away from that match. But especially since we have so many guys who are getting ready to come into the roster now, there's going to be so many other opportunities for these guys to wrestle other people and get opportunities. And now Apollo has that number one contendership, and there's a couple of obligations that have to be met first. So Apollo has some time to really get himself ready and get himself in shape for that big match.
See, that's good to know. People ask me, they said, so the next show is going to be Apollo in the main event. And I said, I don't know that. It could be down the
No,
road. He's just number one contender. When it gets cashed in is up in the air.
no, there is three more people who were obligated title shots that I had to give to, and actually it kind of worked itself out pretty good because the next one was Lamar Diggs. And so Lamar Diggs will be getting the title shot at New Realm on August the 18th, I
18th.
believe.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, August the 18th, he will be getting the title shot there. We got
There you
four
go.
shows this month, so I got a lot of stuff that
Oh yeah. Yep.
I
Yep.
gotta remember. Yeah.
I made my list. I made sure we had them all there.
Yeah.
We'll get to those in a second. But there you go. Breaking news, fans of Deep South or fans of this show, that there's your main event. It's going to be Lamar Diggs and Jacob Johnson
Well,
for the
here's the
belts.
funny thing about Big Bad Diggs versus Jacob Johnson. When Jacob Johnson first got into business for a little company called GIPW out of Warner Robins, Georgia, who was his tag team partner?
Was it Diggs?
Big Bad Diggs.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
So it's not
there
like
is
it's a cakewalk for him. And I mean,
no.
anybody who knows Big Bag Diggs knows he's easily one of the strongest wrestlers in all of the state of Georgia. I've watched that man vertical suplex everyone, and for fun.
Yeah.
Just this big Alabama farmhand that can do whatever he wants. Former member of the armed forces in the army. That kid, that Diggs is a big bad boy. There's a
Oh, he's a
reason he
big
does
dude. Yeah.
There's a reason he does private security for a lot of big names in the hip hop and R&B world these days when he's not wrestling.
Hey, I don't blame him. That's good money, and who's going to mess with him? Certainly not going to be me. Uh,
There's a reason you've seen him in a couple people's music videos. I'll say that much.
right. And of course, we're here with Eric Adamz, the matchmaker from Deep South, among all the other things he does for that great organization. Let's hit the women's match real quick, because you get Rose Gold, pretty known as a heel, Gemma obviously a heel. That's usually a tough matchup. But in this scenario, both of them played it pretty straight up until the end, and we'll get into what Nathaniel was doing in the building, because that I had more questions about Vanderbilt showing up than I did about the entire card, and that was just crazy. But
Well, I
uh,
mean, I'll tell you what was going on there. It's those two have had a little quiet, petty rivalry going for a while over who's the tallest, the baddest
yep,
woman in wrestling in the state of Georgia. And so in wrestling, it's called giant envy when the big 7-footers are, when there's more than one in the company, and it's actually led to real fights. Kali and Big Show backstage in Puerto
yep,
Rico, and I think there's a little giant envy between those two women, both of them being over 6 foot tall.
yeah.
And
I,
so I think it was more of a proving ground for both of them. I mean, they came out swinging; they were fighting each other,
oh,
and
they were there. There was some hidden things in that match that if you didn't know what you were looking at, you wouldn't have seen it.
I think once the video comes out, everybody's going to be able to see that.
Oh yeah,
The interesting thing is, yeah, um, Nathaniel Vanderbilt's that scorned lover, man. Him and Rose broke up, and it's
mm.
gotten pretty nasty on social media. The guy took his engagement ring and threw it in the toilet and flushed it.
Yeah.
And I guess he's just continue. I think there's a guy who does there's a guy who goes around asking questions to people in the greater Atlanta area, like couples and stuff. And there was one time where they actually ran into Rose and Nathaniel, and Nathaniel kind of, I think other people's words got to him, calling him a simp, and
Ah,
things maybe a little worse than that. Excuse me. And you know, I think that got to him, and it's unfortunate because they were a great couple, but now he's involving himself in Rose's stuff, and you know what? I don't think Rose is one bit scared of him because
nope.
she was pissed off. She was pissed off that that happened, and when she got back to the gorilla, Nathan was gone, and I had to calm her down, and I saw the tears of anger in her eyes, and
Hmm.
hell have no fury than a woman. I should know that. I'm divorced.
I'm happily married, and I know that. So,
There you go.
but uh, but yeah, she had to pass us because we were right on the entranceway. She had to pass us when all that happened because I looked and I was like, okay, let me see if I can figure out what's going on, and that's what it looked like to me. And it seemed like there was a lot of real emotion there that this wasn't playing up for the situation that to watch that play out in the next probably the rest of the year will be pretty entertaining. I think we got about 10 minutes left on this, so uh,
We can go
I
as
don't
long
know
as
if
you
Ryan.
want.
Well, I mean, till this recording cuts off. So,
Oh, okay.
Ryan Rembrandt, was this his first time on the card?
This was Ryan Rembrandt is personally someone I have been trying to get on the roster for about a year now.
Okay.
He's had a very successful run with Memphis Championship Wrestling from
Hmm.
Memphis,
Hmm.
where he was wrestling likes of Chris Masters and them. He had an injury. Thankfully, he finally got cleared, and his schedule was open enough to where I could get him. I think what a lot of people are missing, the story there isn't the fact that Matt Sells won. It's the fact that Ryan Rembrandt, who's really still just in the sophomore stages of his career,
Hmm.
hung in there with a man who's wrestled the likes of Cody Rhodes, who's wrestled all the top names, a man who's wrestled for AEW, Ring of Honor, WWE,
Yeah,
NXT, Matt Sells, one of the best, and a man who's had a stranglehold in the Georgia wrestling scene everywhere he's been. He's been a champion. He's been one of the most uh, sought after wrestlers in the Georgia scene. And he hung toe to toe with Matt Sells. So
absolutely.
to me, Matt Sells won the match, absolutely, and it's a victory for Matt Sells, but it's also a victory for Ryan Rembrandt, who is an unorthodox wrestler for this time period.
Hmm.
To come out there and show that it's not just a gimmick, that there's a fantastic wrestler behind that.
Yeah.
And I expect big things from Ryan Rembrandt here in the future.
Yeah, yeah, I do as well. And Boozerweight is a tough matchup because you got some of his antics and he's so unorthodox in how he wrestles. He's such a veteran, like you said, 18, 20 years,
Yeah,
so probably something close to that anyway. He is a tough draw for anybody. And I felt like
yeah.
Rembrandt more than did enough that he
Well,
could
it
have
was a
gotten that
test.
victory, just Sells caught him.
Yeah, well, my belief is this. That was his big test for me because I wanted to see how Ryan Rembrandt, a guy like I said, who wrestled Chris Masters and them, how
Hmm.
could he handle himself in the ring with someone that likes of Matt Sells?
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, he proved it. He's there. The kid's got it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I thought that was a great little hidden gem right in the middle of the card like that. I want
Absolutely.
to run through. It was good to see Mark Davison make his debut. I got to see him at Lucha
Yeah.
as well and spoke to him. That's why I put that in the write up. Actually, is I said, I said, hey, anything you tell me is off the record, and he said, no, 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 you can put this on the record. He said, I'm going to very much see what I can do to try to be back in Deep South as much as possible. And I was like, then I'm putting that in print because the fans would probably love to see you. And Hit for Hire, he's a hard draw too. It would have been nice to see Luca as
Hitman
the
for
opponent.
hire,
We know about Luca, but Hit for Hire is no joke. He will take you out if given the chance.
Hitman for hire,
What is it?
Hitman for hire.
Hitman for Hire. There we go.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
all
read my
good.
own writing. He's going to
Yeah,
come
no,
after me now. That's great.
no, you're all right. You know, Luca was injured, and so he sent Hitman for hire. I think he sent Hitman for hire more as just a message,
Yep.
because Luca is injured right now. We have no update. on that scenario. The minute we do, we will let everybody know. But excuse me, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. There's I was really happy to get Mark Davidson on the card. I'm happy to always bring in a fellow Puerto Rican on the cards, especially someone of that caliber of talent now
Yeah.
based out of here in the Georgia area. So,
Yep.
and we worked out a few times over at the school a couple times, and I've always thought this kid's tremendous. And I might have snuck over to Savannah and wrestled him on another lucha card called Immortal a few months ago when I was getting ready for Skrilla, and we had a fun little match. And yeah, I expect big things from the kid. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. Even the stuff he does with Angel and everybody with that group, that it's ridiculous how much Puerto Rican talent is in the Georgia area and people don't know
It's because they all followed me.
it. That's what it is, the trendsetter.
I started in 2019, and then everybody came after.
Yep.
But listen, we only got a little bit of time left. I'm
Yep.
giving you exclusive. I don't do these interviews, man. Ask me anything. Let's get it out there. What do you want to know?
Well, I think we got about 4 minutes left. But first off, you made the announcement that Deep South in the very near future, I believe you said in the fall or possibly somewhere around there, is now
End of
going to
the
be on
fall,
pay per
beginning of
view.
winter, we are going to have our first streaming pay-per-view event called Believe, live from Atlanta. Venue is, we have the venue set up. We're just waiting to finish the paperwork on that venue. They're very excited to have us. The streaming company is very happy to have us too. Expect a press release within the next couple weeks to a month. There'll be a press release coming out with that information. And there might be some very interesting partners associated with this event. That much is the only thing I'm allowed to say right now.
Yeah,
But
I was
there
about
might
to
be
say,
some very interesting partners that might be associated, helping us put this show together.
that is what we call in the business a tease.
Yeah. But
But yeah, I definitely don't want to get you in trouble. So we'll leave that where it is. You
I'll
did
say
say there is,
this. I'll
yeah,
say this. Not all wounds last forever. And not only can wounds be healed, wounds can be forgiven.
they can. Without us getting too deeply spiritual, I think we both agree that all bridges can be rebuilt. You just got to try hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you got 4 shows coming up in August as of now.
Yeah, I
That
do.
can
There might be more.
Saturday, August 17th, 7 p.m. You are at Little College Brewery.
Little
That is
Little
in
Cottage
Avondale Estate.
Brewing, yeah, Little Cottage Brewing in Decatur, Avondale Estates for Cottage Hardcore. We're gonna have 4 big matches that night. Jacob Johnson versus Lamar Diggs for the Deep South title. Gemma Jules versus an opponent to be named. Did I get cut off there because someone tried to call in?
You're good. You're still on.
Or okay, Gemma Jules versus opponent to be named. Um, 2 other big matches that will be announced. Of course, the next day, the 18th, we will be back at New Realm Brewing for our next TV taping.
Yep.
1 match already and guaranteed to happen is going to be Jacob Johnson versus Lamar Diggs. More matches will be coming out in the coming weeks. That show is being called New Dawn.
Okay. And then, of course, Saturday the 24th and Sunday the 25th at the Summer Shade Festival, you will be you will have matches at 12 and at 4 p.m. both those days. That means you should go to both days of the festival, people.
Well, here's the big. You're burying the lead. The Summer Shade Festival takes place in Grant Park. We are
Oh,
coming back to the Grant Park area. So we're calling those events homecoming. And I'll go ahead and I'll release the big news coming to that. You are going to be seeing the qualifying and quarterfinals to the Deep South Wrestling Tag Team Tournament on both days. Matches will be happening for that. to set up
Cool.
the finals at the August New Realm tapings. Which New Realm location? I'm not saying.
There are
But I will.
multiple.
I'll give you know what I'm going to give that. I'm going to give you guys a scoop right now. September the 1st, Deep South Wrestling makes its debut in Greenville, South Carolina, at New Realm Brewing in Greenville, and that's going to be a big event right there. We're going to have some great matches there. It's going to be our debut in Greenville, South Carolina. You're going to get to see the stars of Deep South mixed with some of the top talent in the South Carolina area. So if you want to travel out to see a show, we'll be there. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're working also on 2 other out-of-state shows on that same loop. This is the start of our promoting for the for